Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
With the Mario Brothers and plumbing's a game. We're not like the others who get all the fame. If your sink is in trouble, you can call us on the double. We're faster than the others, you'll be hooked on the brothers. Hooked on the brothers. Yo, you're in for a treat, so hang on to your seat. Get ready for adventure and remarkable feats. You'll meet Koopas and Troopers, the princess and the others. Hanging with the plumbers, you'll be hooked on the brothers to the bridge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of Superannuated Starman. I'm your host, Sean Ryan, and as always, I'm joined by Chris Duerksen.
Always.
And Cory Braucks.
Always.
This episode's going to be a little different from every other show we've done so far, and instead of revisiting a video game, we're going to be sharing our memories of a cartoon that you may remember from the late 80s, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. This show doesn't have a lot of music with it, so I'll be breaking up the intro into two parts, and I'll be adding in some music that's related to the show, or I might just use the original Super Mario Brothers theme song. Who knows? I haven't really planned that far ahead.
Which is really what they've done throughout the show anyway, is just cannibalize old sound bites of the games.
Very true. And if you're listening to this part, you've already heard at least half of the plumber rap, which I'm sure we'll talk about more.
So, hold on. Let's pump the brakes really quick. Why is there a plumber rap? And is it just because this came out in like 1990 and that was very much late 80s to be like in the rap scene?
Yep.
Because this...
I think that's exactly what it was.
Okay.
That's my thoughts on it. I'm not 100% sure. And supposedly it was actually the two stars of the show that did that rap. However,
Okay.
there's some conflicting information out there that it might in fact be the Wayans brothers that did it.
Yeah, it does not sound like Lou Albano and it, doing
Not
the
at all.
words. Yeah. But I also would like to comment, so this show is very stereotypical. There's a lot of like pizza and spaghetti references and everything else. And
Yes,
for
and
something
we're going to
that
talk
leans,
about that.
well, but for something that leans very heavily into the Italian stereotype, to open with like a upbeat, very fast-paced rap song is very confusing to me.
That's a really good point. For those of you out there that don't know anything about this show, here's the history behind it. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show was a live-action and animated television show that originally aired from September 4th to November 30th of 1989. The show ran for 13 weeks, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. 4 days a week, the show was based on the Mario Brothers games, specifically Super Mario Brothers 1 and 2. However, every Friday, the animated portion of the show was based on The Legend of Zelda. Every episode had a live action segment at the beginning and end that starred Captain Lou Albano, who was a WWF wrestling performer. He starred as Mario. His co-star, Danny Wells, took on the role of the green plumber we all know and love, Luigi. These segments often involved a celebrity guest star that would join the pair, either as themselves or as a character connected to a segment's plot, who were often a popular television star or a professional athlete of the time. A few of those celebrities included Cyndi Lauper, Ernie Hudson, Magic Johnson, Vanna White, and Elvira, just to name a few.
So can I also chime in really quick on this one? Because
Absolutely.
So, all right, you mentioned that Lou is a WWF wrestler. I had no idea that he was a WWF wrestler.
Neither did I.
Now,
as a
looking at
kid.
his career, it was like he was back in like the 60s and 70s is when he used to wrestle. But that being said, it completely explains why by the third episode, Sergeant Slaughter is their guest star.
Yep.
I'm like, Sergeant Slaughter pops up, and then like Rowdy Roddy Piper's in here for some reason. And I'm just like, what is happening? So for him to be a wrestler, it completely explains some of their choices.
And Captain Albano's like gimmick as a wrestler was rubber bands on his face.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all.
Well,
It's very weird.
early wrestling didn't make sense. There was always like weird gimmicks, like I'm a backwoods
Yeah.
redneck and I pile drive people for fun.
Absolutely. That's
I mean,
definitely the
look
case
at
with
Mick
this.
Foley's career, and you can piece that one together.
And he had a like trademark beard that he actually shaved for the show. He didn't want to, but Mario with a beard just was not going to happen.
How did they pick him for the show?
You know what, man? I don't know. I don't know why he was the one chosen, but he's actually Italian.
I mean,
Which-
I'm sure that weighed into it. It probably was also the fact that, like, God, I don't know who was airing WWF at the time, but he probably had a contract with like Warner Brothers or Time Warner Cable or something where he was in their Rolodex and he just showed up for a cattle call and he probably fit the bill.
Yeah, and as a wrestler, I mean, we all know wrestling's fake. There's a lot of improv and acting going on there. And in an interview, he actually stated that the filming of the live action segments involved mainly himself and Wells receiving a central plot and mostly improvising the dialogue as they went along.
So are you telling me all these like spaghetti jokes? Those are all like
off the cuff.
It might have been. And
oh man.
Though the show was immensely popular, according to Danny Wells, in an interview, it only lasted a single season because, quote, the show didn't last because the show didn't mean anything to Nintendo. And even getting the show into production was a difficult process as Andy Hayward, the then CEO of Deke Enterprises, spent about a year trying to convince Nintendo to license the characters. Eventually, Andy Hayward was able to get Nintendo on board, but the show went through some major revisions before it became the show we know today. It was originally going to be called the Super Mario Bros. Power Hour and would include cartoons based on Mario, Zelda, Castlevania, Double Dragon, Metroid, and California game franchises.
So it would have been just a Nintendo smorgasbord.
Nintendo themed Power Hour laser block.
Yeah, but this idea was eventually dropped, and the show focused almost entirely on Mario with the exception of The Legend of Zelda. And you could tell that whomever drew the marketing material for the Power Hour did so without getting Nintendo's input because you can clearly see that they designed Samus as a man.
I'm going to look that up.
I'll shoot some photos in the Discord in a second. The opening theme of every show, the plumber rap, was repeated before the Super Mario Bros. Animated segments, and each episode begins with Mario reciting an entry into his plumber's log. Then he would team up with Luigi to assist Princess Toadstool and Toad in preventing King Koopa from taking over the kingdom with some sort of sinister plot, generally one parodying a book, a movie, or some historical event. Albano and Wells not only performed during the live-action portion of the show, but they voiced Mario and Luigi as well, alongside Jeannie Elias as Princess Toadstool, John Stalker as Toad, and Harvey Atkin as King Koopa. Like I mentioned earlier, this was 1989, years before Princess Toadstool was renamed as Princess Peach, and before King Koopa was known as Bowser. Although the show didn't last very long, it did lead to several sequels based on subsequent games. There was King Koopa's Cool Cartoons, The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and Captain N, the Game Master, which may have been what Super Mario Bros. Power Hour kind of formed into. Unfortunately, Captain Luis Albano passed away in October of 2009, and similarly with Danny Wells in November of 2013. But their legacy lives on through remembrances like what we're doing here today. If you're watching the show today, you can download an app called Tubi and watch the entire series for free, or you can find high-quality episodes on YouTube.
Also on Roku.
On Roku, I did not know that.
YouTube's got the whole thing. Like,
Yep. All of them.
yeah, it's all uploaded by MarioBros.net. So
For
like,
free,
I'm pretty sure,
yep.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like the official thing. So you can watch them. They're fun.
Unfortunately, nearly every episode had some copyrighted or licensed music, and those have since been edited and replaced. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll discuss our memories of sitting on the couch, bowl of cereal in hand, and watching these marvelous Mario cartoons.
Yo, it's the Mario Brothers, and plumbing's the game. Found the secret water while working on the drain. Lend the princess a hand in the mushroom land. Join the action with the plumbers, you'll be hooked on the brothers. Now
Chris, where were you on Monday, September 4th, 1989? Were you sitting down in front of a television watching the premiere of the show, or did you catch up on reruns a few years later?
September 4th, 89. What time of day was it? Was this a morning show or an afternoon show?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because in my head, it was an afternoon show.
Yeah, I think this was an afternoon show. Oh,
I remember watching it when I was really young.
Yeah. I watched this show anytime I could. This was one of my go-to favorite cartoons when I was a kid, being like young. I mean, like probably, I don't know if I was watching it when it was on reruns or if it was live. Because, well, actually, no, realistically, in 89, I would have been 5. So I was probably catching reruns of it later. Because I remember watching the show. Well, then again, I got my Nintendo one at 6, so I don't know. But I used to watch the show anytime I could. And my big thing was Mario was my favorite game when I was a kid. That was everybody's favorite game. And
for
I was
sure.
always, I always thought oh, if I watch the show, like it's going to tell me where some secrets are or how to, show me secret areas or things that I missed in the game or something.
To
Like
interrupt you, the broadcast history syndication listed as a 4 p.m. based on
cool. All right.
what year?
So it's an after.
Yeah. So
After
that
school.
was syndication. So I don't know what the original was, but yeah, I'm assuming it was an after school program because it was 5 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. And really and the way Sean was describing it is almost like they tried to like take like a talk show format. The way they had like there's a constant rotating door of high profile guests, and the fact that it was 5 days a week, it's like they were really trying to make like a kids talk show or something. I don't know.
Well, what it felt like to me was if Nintendo and Mr. Rogers had like a
there you
horrible
go.
baby, it would be the Super Mario show. Because like you know how Mr. Rogers was like, we're gonna go meet my friend Phil. He works at the power plant. We're gonna go talk, and then they'd have like a little chat, and then he'd show you something wholesome, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. But this one is like Mario and Luigi are hanging out, and then the first episode, like Nicole Eggert walks in, and you're just like, "What? Why are you the first guest star on the first episode?" For one thing, that was very confusing to me.
And
And
that
for
was the
those
one
of you
where
listening,
where the big plot reveal was that she was going to a messy
the
party or
messy
something.
party.
Oh my
So
god!
Nicole Eggert was on Charles in Charge, I believe, during like the late '80s, and then she went on to like be one of the original Baywatch ladies. So very confusing for her to be like the first guest star for this show.
Yeah.
A lot of those guests were very confusing to be guests. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
I mean like Ernie Hudson. I mean, well, he's a Ghostbuster, but yeah, it's just like very
Vanna White?
Yeah. Like I don't know, man. Magic Johnson showed up, and then you had I don't know.
The fact that they got all these people to do it is boggles my mind because
there were
the
just
show
a bunch of people, man.
Well, one of the celebrities I mentioned was Cyndi Lauper, and she already had some ties to Lou Albano because he was in one of her music videos as her father.
Okay.
Those two are already.
I'm assuming Lou just got around a lot, like in his long career, and that's why they had like so many people like pop in for this. Because it's
his name, his name still meant something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's just like Moon Zappa shows up at one point, and you're just like, what is Moon Zappa doing here?
And like you said, he also brought in other wrestlers as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that with kids, like that was really easy cross promotion to be like, hey, Sergeant Slaughter's on the Mario show.
Exactly. Now, was he retired from wrestling when he was doing the show?
Yeah, he was.
He was retired, but he came back after.
Yeah, right. I think he was a manager for up and coming wrestlers at that point.
Yeah, but he was office staff at this point, I believe, because he used to wrestle in the '70s, according to his profile here.
But anyways, this was one of those shows that I used to watch as much as I could, and just because anything with Mario's face on it was cool. And one thing, even as a kid, I remember. I thought it was interesting is the fact that the whole show is, to me, it says it's based on Mario 1 and Mario 2. everything in the show is all Mario 2.
Well, I mean, some
Yeah.
of the color palette is very much Mario 1. Like Bowser, for example, looks like KR Rule from Donkey Kong. Like he's just this big green dude, like a crocodile.
Well, in Mario 2, at least Mario 2 USA, there's that whole conversation, but we won't get into it. There were no fire flowers,
Yeah.
which is
that's
something
true.
they
That's
use
true.
a lot
Yep.
in the show.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The
Yeah, well,
power
and
ups.
that's the other. So like this show has so many like weird plumbing references as well. Like they really lean into the whole plumber bit.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
by the third episode, he is King Arthur, and he pulls the golden plumber from the golden
Plunger.
Yeah, the golden plunger from the big golden toilet bowl or whatever it is, the bathtub. And then
Marvin the Wizard.
he proceeds to lose that to Bowser, and then he gets like a magic like Excalibur drain snake.
Snake. Yeah.
And he proceeds to like whip Bowser with it.
And can we talk? I was trying to look up who the voice for Marvin was for that, but it sounded like a Mel Brooks ripoff. Like,
Oh, I didn't look up the voice actors outside of the like stationary cast.
but it was lots of more stereotypical. That's not even a word. Stereotypical.
Typical.
There you go.
Stereotypical lines for Marvin the Orthodox Wizard. Like, I don't even know what to call him. Yeah, it was.
They also had such a weird emphasis on pasta and
Pasta power and all that stuff.
linguine and pizza and spaghetti.
Yeah, there's a phone sitting like on their black or their like red and white checkered table in their little office, by the way. And there's a phone sitting on the table, and it's just sitting in a pizza. Like there's this pepperoni pizza sitting on the table with like an old style rotary phone slapped in the middle of it, and it's got like melted cheese just sitting on top of it.
Well, in order to make phone calls, you actually have to push the pepperonis.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Well, as a
nightmare.
kid, how did you feel about the live action portion versus the cartoon portion?
I mean, from my limited memory of this, because this aired like as I was being born almost. So, like I caught the reruns, especially like the Saturday morning block. You know, when we used to have cool cartoons from like 7 a.m. to noon. But I have fond memories of this, and especially the live action bits. And like I said, it really felt like Nintendo and Mr. Rogers had like this horrible orphan baby, and you know, it was just this absurd campy thing, and they really do like lean into it. Like Lou does an amazing job as Mario. Like he really sells it. So you just see this like big fat Italian guy with his like curly hair and his mustache, and he's dancing around and they're whacking each other, and it's very like Three Stooges slapstick absurdity.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
So much slapstick humor. And like you're talking about Albano, he was a wrestler, so he really doesn't have any real quote unquote acting capability, where Danny Wells was an actor himself. And you could really kind of see the difference in the two of them as we watch as adults.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can see Danny like he's kind of waiting for his mark a lot of the time, and he's very much the straight man in this comedy duo, where he'll set Lou up, and Lou, being trained as a wrestler, he's got a lot of that stage presence where it's like I've got to distract people with absurd
waving his arms around, and
extravagant gestures and a lot of like body work and everything, where Wells is much more of a like, I probably did Shakespeare at some point in my life. Like, what do we do here?
Oh, and can we mention the fact that like in the live action, they are living in a slum apartment. Their apartment also doubles as their office.
Like home office,
which for like 90s New York is probably pretty accurate.
And it's not even just a home office, it's also like their workspace where they have like busted stuff piled up that they're working on from time to time.
Yeah, the first episode, there's just a random sink in the middle of their office space, which is completely hooked up to plumbing, by the way. and they unclog it, and they shoot Nicole Eggert in the face with a big gout of water.
Yeah.
I actually tried to do some research in the background of this. I think that the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is what made the Mario Brothers from New York or Brooklyn specifically canon. I don't think that was ever
Really?
mentioned
Okay.
beforehand.
I mean, I would see that because there's not really any literature on this, franchise. It's a couple
There
of
used to be comics.
well, sure, but like I mean those were really situated mostly like in the Mushroom Kingdom, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't
No,
think there are a lot of like, hey, we're hanging out in an apartment somewhere.
Yeah. That's
And then I think it was further cemented by like Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo in the live action film, because by that
Yes.
point, they really like leaned full into the New York aspect.
And I really want to talk about that. And that's one of the questions I had for the two of you. But first, I want to kind of go back to Super Mario Brothers Super Show. I did watch it as a kid, but my biggest memories of it are watching it on VHS.
Really?
Yes, and I think that I got it from a Scholastic book order.
I was gonna say a Scholastic book or a Pizza Hut or something.
Yeah, I would have not been surprised if you had said it was like a Pizza Hut VHS that you got for like reading 5 books.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember that vividly. But the VHS in particular, the one that I remember the most, it was all blue and it had King Koopa on the front and it was titled like Count Cupula. And there was an episode on there where they were lost instead of Transylvania, it was Turtlevania.
Of course.
And the entire episode is themed around old horror films where King Koopa is Dracula and he wants to turn Princess Toadstool into a vampire, and there's were-turtles and giant spiders that look like Sniffets from Super Mario Brothers 2. And it sounds absolutely insane when I try to describe it, but it was and it is still my all-time favorite episode of the show.
This whole show is trying to describe an acid trip.
You're not wrong, because some of these episodes and we'll talk about more and when we talk about our revisiting, but there's things like Star Wars where they revisit that, and
it's just the whole thing's just gone off the plot. I mean, like by the middle of the first episode, Bowser is in a frozen fortress and he has his Koopa minions who are just like guys in white like snow gear, by the way. They're not even Koopas when you look at them. And he's like, if I want my feet kissed, I'd ask for it. And he goes, kiss my feet. And they proceed to like lick the dude's feet. It's so weird.
It's very weird.
Part of me almost thinks that Nintendo actually had no part in this at all, except for just.
Oh no, yeah, they signed off on it.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like, Deke is a reputable business. They've got a lot of children's programming, and they just were like, let's just do whatever we want because we've only got this for like a month.
I can't really remember many cartoons specifically, but I remember the Deke, logo at the very end of everything.
Deke.
Yeah, Inspector Gadget was one of them that I know for sure. So they were a very good company to go to when it comes to, or really that they went to Nintendo. But I think they were a good fit when it came to incorporating the Mario franchise and turning it into a cartoon. Was it weird? Very.
Super.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Deke for sure had Sonic and they had Inspector Gadget, like you said, and I think they had Rainbow Bright too, and maybe Transformers.
All good stuff. And there's not a lot of lore, especially in 1989 for the Mario Brothers franchise. So they had to come up with these crazy ideas. And Cory, you mentioned the 1993 film Super Mario Brothers that starred Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. Did either of you go see that in theater? Well, maybe not you, Cory. You might have been too young.
I believe it's one of the first things that I actually got to go to.
So my first theater experience that I remember as a child was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action film.
Yeah, I saw number 2 in the theaters for sure.
And This reminds me of that. It's this really super gritty take on Mario.
Yes, it's very like low light levels everywhere. Everything is passive lighting.
I loved that movie.
It's so dark. Not just,
Oh yeah, it's grim.
yeah, they do some horrific things in that film. Like
Dennis Hopper just mutates people constantly.
Yeah.
When they turn Toad into a Goomba, which the Goombas look insane as well.
They're connoisseurs, yeah. Speaking of the film as well, this was God, what's his name? Who did the dog song?
The dog song?
Rapper. Help me out here.
Who let the dogs out?
No. Like I'll get back to you in a second. George Clinton in the Goombas did Walk the Dinosaur in this one.
What? Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about now.
And he did Atomic Dog. That's the song I'm thinking of.
So that dinosaur song, I'm gonna download that and I'm gonna play it right here. So that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's like a funk artist.
Yeah, that film is just so weird. And in my mind, 1993 is not so far separate as a kid.
Oh, it was 5 years ago.
Say what?
It was 5 years ago, right?
Oh, but as a kid, between 1993 and 1989, that's a huge gap. But in reality, I still remembered the 1989 Lou Albano version of Mario. So seeing Bob Hoskins and just how dark and gritty it was, I did not. I didn't.
They weren't even the same universe to me. I didn't think of them as being even. They weren't even related to each other. Like they were just totally, separate. Yes, they were both Mario, but they were not the same Mario. And
that's a fair way of looking at it. But I was too young to really separate like that in my mind.
Well, plus, I mean, like for me, like when I'm like watching the cartoon, like I said, I directly related that to playing the game, and I was looking for clues. I was making up.
You were sorely disappointed on that front.
Yeah, but but like and the cartoon was like all the landscapes and the enemies and stuff. That was all Mario too. That was directly tied to the game, and the cartoon himself was like the same looking Mario as kind of like the Mario from the cover art of Mario 2, and but then the Mario movie was not. The colors were different. The
Mario
landscape
film.
Yeah, the film was not
to do with
the game at all. It had nothing to do with the game at all. So it was just basically like its own standalone thing to me. And the fact that like Luigi was the hero, Luigi gets the girl. Like,
it's John Leguizamo.
Exactly.
Can we talk about the fact that like Bob Hoskins, for a very short point in his career, made a bunch of like amazing children's films?
Yeah.
Like he
Are
did
you talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, well, he did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then he did Hook because he was in Hook.
Yep.
And then he did the Super Mario Bros. So in the span of like 4 years, he made like 3 very iconic like children's films.
Wow, I never thought of that way. You're absolutely right. Did either of you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about when it came to your memories of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show?
I'm already bleeding into the present day as it is.
Yeah,
I was a little bit too. And maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, but after the initial run of the show in the spring and summer of 1990, Club Mario replaced the Mario Brothers live action segments of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. And this series featured 2 Mario obsessed teenagers, for lack of a better term, who played the hosts of the segment. Their names were Tommy Treehugger and Co-MC.
That's so depressing.
If this is what you remember you out there listening, and you've been listening to this episode and wondering what we're talking about when we mentioned two middle-aged men playing as our favorite pair of plumbers, they decided to take the episodes in a more 90s extreme manner by replacing Lou Albano and Danny Wells with a pair of teenagers from the early 1990s.
So not only did they wipe out Lou and Danny, but they also wiped out like 50 very high profile guest actors at that point then. Because like we said, we were naming like, so you get the wrestlers like Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, and all that, which are, you know, big names for the era. But like Magic Johnson was a huge name, like moving in through the 90s. And like Ernie Hudson, like that's a Ghostbuster. And like Cyndi Lauper, like those are still big names, like in 94, 95.
They were huge.
Yeah.
They're not like, coming on our show.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's like, yeah, we're just gonna take all these like cameos and stuff and just throw them out the window. Like, wow, okay.
So here's some audio from the Club Mario theme song that replaced the plumber rap. And when we come back, we're going to discuss what it's like watching the Super Mario Brothers Super Show 30 years later.
Grab your bottle onto your hand. Adeline service is where it's at the club. Love Mario. We're at the club. And ain't any place that you wanna go. We'll take you there. Oh, don't you know? We're at the club. Club Mario. Enjoy the club.
Welcome back, Paisanos. In September of this year, I got on eBay looking for a cheap way of getting a DVD. Okay, I'll go ahead and start over.
No, keep that in. Keep it in. It's just, I knew it was coming, and then just hearing you say it made me bust out laughing.
Just welcome back, Paisanos.
Oh.
So for those of you out there, every episode starts off with Mario or Albano telling you, the viewer, that, hey, welcome back, Paisano, which is a term that means, you know, my fellow countryman, or he's your friend, your buddy, your pal.
Hey,
so I
Paisanos.
got on eBay looking for a cheap way of getting a DVD out to all three of us. And luckily I was able to find 3 copies of the exact same DVD. So I bought them and then mailed them out to these guys with the homework of watching these episodes and taking notes.
Oh, man.
So rewatching today, my first thought was, wow, there is a ton of slapstick humor, like almost Three Stooges style.
Oh yeah, they
Totally.
definitely like were looking at Harry or Larry Moe and Curly over here.
Yeah, my second thought was there's so many Italian stereotypes.
So many. The show get canceled if it's made today.
The show wouldn't get made today. Like they have to sanitize the language so much.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like I mentioned, that Albano is actually Italian.
But today, if you walked up and called an Italian dude on the street of Pisano, you'd probably get punched in the throat.
No, not. I don't think you would with Paisano, but if you're like, hey, you big spaghetti eater, like, I'm sure it wouldn't go over well. But that's exactly what happens in the show. Like, the first episode, they're like, oh, we're getting all cleaned up. Like, oh, hey, Mario, you got some spaghetti on your shoulder. And he's like, oh, you got some sauce on your bib. And they're like, what do you know? You're Fanzanoon. Like, Jesus, dude.
Very stereotypical. And my third thought was they basically parodied the hell out of everything.
Yeah.
Just about every
episode title. Yeah. I noticed that too.
Everything was and there's
a parody or a reference to something.
There's a lot of alliteration in this show as well.
What do you mean?
Well, like,
can you alliterate on that?
Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it's like, you perilous plumber, and he's like, you lanky lizard.
Oh, right. Yeah. Bowser hurling insults that all.
Yeah, he's just like, you
start with the same letter.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of alliteration.
Yeah.
He's like, you criminal Koopa, I'm gonna get you. Like, okay.
Okay, so as a kid, I didn't critique anything like this, but can we talk about the opening song, they're dancing to it. It looks like it's like a training video for a work
It's
for a
Richard
safety
Simmons
video
clip.
for work. Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
mean, like
okay.
the way that there's two old
Yeah.
guys dancing, like I don't
It's
know, like a youth group video or something for like the
the
world's
qual-
cheesiest church.
the quality is very reminiscent of like an OSHA clip. Like,
Yeah,
I got you with that one.
You're
Like,
not
yeah.
wrong.
if Domino's wanted to make like a real like friendly like introductory clip to like working at their stores, like here's our OSHA safety tips with Domino's.
Or even I could say if your local news station went to your assisted living facility because they were having a mockery and a dancing contest,
Wow.
this is what it looked like.
Is there a 5-minute bit at the end where there's a squirrel on water skis? Is that
No, I'm just saying, like,
All in all, though, I really enjoyed rewatching these things. And like I said at the beginning, I've watched. This is not the first time I've seen Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
You said this is something
recently.
you watch regularly.
Yeah, I watch a couple episodes about every year or so. In that one episode that I mentioned about Count Cupula, like I said, man, that's my favorite one. I have so much nostalgia for it, and I love going back to it. One thing that really bothered me though about rewatching a lot of these episodes today is that there's a lot of licensed music that was okay, or maybe they had the rights to it in the 80s, but they took it all out and they replaced it with just really
Noise.
either
Filler.
noise or just kind of run of the mill stuff.
yeah,
Just
there's probably
generic
just some
filler.
dead air in there at some point.
Like I remember songs like Weird Science and Thriller and stuff like that was iconic of the 1980s, but it's nowhere to be found in most of the newer episodes or reruns.
Nothing they probably legally had the rights to begin with. They probably just threw it in
That may
there.
be true.
And then, like a year later, Michael Jackson's estate's like, hey, you can't put Thriller in this when you put it on VHS.
Did you guys have a particularly favorite episode of these?
Man, I don't know.
Or okay, Chris, I came into this just expecting to fight you on this because
I don't want to fight about it.
But I want your honest opinion. Like,
This show was
suck?
Awful. Oh my god,
Okay.
it's awful. And that's why I wanted to be nice because like a couple weeks ago I messaged you. I'm like, so how are you guys enjoying these shows? Like I kind of wanted to like test the waters and see if I was the only a-hole here that was not enjoying them. And John's like, oh, I watch them all the time. I love them. And I was like, oh, crap.
I mean, this show is just a fever dream, honestly. It's
very and maybe, yeah.
But
and Chris, I started watching them.
It's totally fair for you to dislike it.
Oh yeah, I'll admit, like I said, I only probably watched maybe 10 of them because each episode was torture for me because I could not watch it. The bad acting, the cheesy slapstick, the
overacting,
but also the cartoon part. Like the plots are just
as we said, they're all
cartoons. Like,
they're all public domain, basically.
Yeah, and they're just the most random.
A lot of them.
And they're even for a 6-year-old, they're not funny. I try to get Gibbs to watch these, and he's like, no. But
a 6-year-old today is very different from a 6-year-old in 1989 when you and I were 5 and 6 years old,
and we only had 3 channels. Yeah.
I mean, like even as an adult, I find something charming and campy about this, but it's insanity, is what it is. I
appreciate the snapshot of early 90s that this show is, because I love nostalgia stuff, but
I'm just saying that drugs were involved in the making of this show. Like, especially knowing wrestlers, like I'm sure Lou had a lot of back problems. There were probably some uppers involved. Like, I'm just saying, like, there's probably something in here.
If you go to the Wikipedia page and you look at how many different writers they had for this show, I think it's insane about how many different people were involved in the making of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Well,
And-
Which is crazy.
They probably just pulled guys off other projects and were like, "Hey, we just
Right,
need
Fill in
you
right,
to,
here,
script.
fill in here.
we just need you to knock out a script because we're doing 5 of these a week." I mean, I'm sure the production schedule for this was insane.
You know
Yeah,
what we did not talk about that I really I wish I thought about this when I was talking about our childhood aspect of it. The Zelda episodes.
Excuse
Were
me,
awesome.
princess.
So did you say awesome or awful?
Awesome. I liked them. I thought
Okay.
I liked
Ooh.
the art style was way cooler for them. They had that, kind of comic book animation style to them, and it was.
I mean, even the Mario episodes, I think the animation was really well done. I just think that it was. I think it was.
It's true. But
part of the
but,
issue was just the color palette. Like the color palette and the winging it is because they basically took all these characters that were like these 8 and 16-bit characters at the time, and they turned them into a cartoon. And a lot of that really didn't translate well as far as animation goes, because you look at the original Bowser, and the original Bowser was 2 colors. He was green and brown, or green, brown, and white, I guess, with the trim. But you
Sure.
bring that into the show, and he literally looks like King KR, King Cruel or
King
whatever
Rool.
from Donkey Kong, because he's just this big green crocodile monster. He's not Bowser as we know him.
No, and the Bowser that we knew in the video game didn't have any personality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All we knew was that he took over the Mushroom Kingdom and was transforming its denizens into blocks, which is messed up, by the way. If you ever read the manual to the original Super Mario Brothers, King
No, we
Koopa,
didn't.
Bowser. Okay, well, King Koopa or Bowser, however you want to see him as, it says in the manual that he was transforming the people of the Mushroom Kingdom into blocks, bricks, and all that.
You mean
And
the
what
ones
does
that you
Mario
go around
do?
smashing?
Yeah. Isn't that
Oh.
crazy?
So Mario's just a mass murderer.
Yes.
And you're
And-
stealing, and the ones with coins in them. Those are the ones that had their wallet on them.
That's just stealing their soul. You turn it into money.
No one ever gives it a second thought.
You
Wow.
know,
They didn't read the
Lou
manual.
Albano was actually born in Rome. That's interesting.
The animation for the Super Mario Brothers Super Show was obviously rushed in a lot of ways because there were so many continuity errors that I saw. You'd see Mario with a green cap or Luigi with a red cap. The voices would come out of the wrong characters.
Yeah.
There-
When you do think about it, they were knocking these out, especially back in the early 90s. Animation took forever. I mean, these were all hand drawn,
And drawn.
and they were knocking them out so they could do five episodes a week. I mean, that is actually kind of what. And there's 53 episodes total.
There's like 64.
I don't know if that includes the Zelda ones.
Well, but
yeah.
they still had to do those, and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
still live action pieces to that.
But the Zelda ones look so different from the Mario ones that might be a different company that
team,
did it.
Yeah.
Because
It might have been the same company, but they might have, because they're only doing one a week,
different
they might have
team,
had more
yeah.
time to put them together.
true. And I believe that the animation was farmed out to a Korean animation studio that did this. And there's some episodes that are absolutely crazy. There's one in particular called Raiders of the Lost Mushroom, which clearly
Yeah.
Stolen.
Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Yeah.
with a character called Indiana Joe. Now, if you watch this episode, he has no face at all because they forgot to give him a face.
That's insane.
So the main cast, Mario, Luigi, Toadstool, Toad, their faces were drawn first, and then they went back and got the rest of the ancillary characters, and they forgot to do this guy's face.
And they just went with it.
Yeah. Just Google it, Indiana Joe Mario Brothers, and it'll pop up. And I don't know how this escaped how this got past Q&A.
Well, probably because so this was announced in like May of 90 or 89, and it aired in like September of 89. So I'm assuming production was probably somewhere close to May. So if you're talking about putting together like 65 episodes or whatever in the span of 3 months, 4 months, like I guarantee that they probably just had a giant reel of these things and they were all in a crate and they got shipped over from overseas and they were just like, okay, here's the rough cuts of 40 episodes, slap the audio on them. And I'm sure when they were recording, they're like, why does this guy have a face? And they're like, oh, we'll fix it in post or whatever. We'll do the final edit. And then that's just the one that ended up going on air.
Yeah, you're probably right. There probably wasn't much of a Q&A at all, if there even was one.
No,
But
yeah.
Chris, I accidentally cut you off earlier. Oh, and I'm cutting you off now.
It's fine.
I'm sorry, guys. But Chris, I cut you off earlier when I was talking about the Raiders of the Lost Mushroom. Do you remember what you were going to say?
No, I had a different thing I was thinking about. Was, did this show, I can't remember, were there any of Bowser's kids in the series?
No, those are the later on shows, and that
Okay.
was the Adventures of Super Mario Brothers 3.
Right, and that's why I was going to ask, because this was based on 1 and 2, and I was wondering, I'm like, wait, did his kids pop up? Because I remember seeing cartoon versions of his kids, but yeah, couldn't have been from this one. So
that was the Mario 3 cartoon.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, sometimes I get them all mixed up because I watched this show. I watched the Super Mario Brothers 3 and the Super Mario World one, which was set in Dinosaur Land.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
So Yoshi is a main character and he speaks in it in a very weird voice.
Okay.
But
Did they Jar Jar him?
Not quite, but you should definitely check it out. Just get on YouTube and watch a little bit of it. It's different for sure. And I think that there's a DVD of it on Amazon, the entire season for pretty cheap. And I think it only lasted 1 or 2 seasons. It wasn't long.
Oh, yep.
I don't really know what more we can say about this cartoon. I personally really, really like it. It's something that has stuck with me for a long time, and I'm going to continue to watch it. And I'll get a little bit more into it when I talk about our final thoughts like we do with video games. But is there anything else you guys wanted to mention about this, the revisiting of this show before we take a break?
I did find it. Oh, you go ahead.
No. Go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say it's kind of weird how so much of this show is based on Mario 2, which wasn't even an actual Mario game to start off with. I just thought it was weird.
Well, we know that now, but as a kid,
as a kid, we didn't know. Yeah. So I wonder if anybody from Japan was watching the Mario cartoon and be like, wait, Mario what?
I highly doubt that this was translated for a Japanese audience.
Oh my God. That'd be great.
How would you translate Paisano?
You just keep it as Paisano.
Ohio, Paisano? Okay, so I think that's going to wrap this segment up. And I know this episode is largely about the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, but I'd be letting my 5-year-old self down if I didn't include the Legend of Zelda theme song in here as well.
This is the Triforce of Wisdom, Link. The evil wizard Ganon has the Triforce of Power. Whoever gets both Triforces will rule this land forever. You must help me, Link.
Hey, for you, Zelda, anything.
Nice job, hero.
Hey, excuse me, princess.
Welcome back, everybody. This is our final segment where we have our final thoughts. So like I said just a moment ago, I've been watching the Super Mario Brothers Super Show on and off again for about 30 years. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, and while I realize that it's not a high-quality cartoon, it was a big part of my childhood despite its short runtime. And there's a lot of continuity errors and just general problems with the show that I didn't see as a kid that will definitely stick out if you're an adult watching it today. But it's still just a lot of great fun. And you can really see where Nintendo might have actually been paying attention, and they may have drawn some inspiration from Luigi being inept or cowardly. That's a reoccurring theme throughout the episodes. Also, I don't think that this gets enough credit for taking these iconic characters out of their own medium, a video game, and bringing them into both a live action and animated media simultaneously. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, Cory, but it's basically a live action 80s sitcom for children.
Yeah.
And it might not work out the best, but for me, it's tons of fun and I really love it. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think it would have been cool if they would have stuck to one or the other a little bit longer. Like now that you frame it like that, like could you imagine an entire episode that was all live action? Actually,
I like the
with a
format.
plot. I thought it was.
I don't think
did
that
it
would
was
have
cool.
worked.
I don't think this worked too well either, though.
Well, so
That's fair.
this
That's your
is your
opinion.
this is your little ending thing here, but I will say in defense of this show, I think the live action is probably the best portion of this show, and I think that the animated stuff is great in its premise, but it's clearly very slapdash. Like it was all just put together in a very short time frame, and it's very. I mean, it looks fine visually, but it's clearly like was not edited at all, and they really didn't have like a writer's room for this or anything. So I think it was all just kind of rushed together, and I think Lou and Wells are really the ones that just sell this as a series.
Sold it. Yeah.
I agree.
Can we also mention? I didn't think about mentioning this earlier, and this. I mean, this is going to sound like a critique, but it's not because for a kids show, kids have. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a mean person saying this. Short attention spans.
I mean, it's
Are-
completely accurate.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not
Thank you.
mean. That's true.
So the fact that the live action has nothing to do with the cartoon is actually kind of works in their favor here because I don't know, it's just short little nuggets of story that you can watch, enjoy, and then it switches to the cartoon, and then it's a totally different story. And the live action is not related to the cartoon at all.
Well, it might be. There might be a little
It's
bit
tangentially related.
thematic.
But it's, yeah.
I mean, like they voice the cartoon people, but it's not like when they
I mean,
cut to the cartoon. It's not like it shows them like going down a pipe and showing
No,
up,
yeah,
popping
but
up in cartoon land. You
it's
know,
Lou. You know, it's Mario reflecting on his adventures in the Mushroom Kingdom, and then we come back to present day where he's having a pizza party for an orphan.
I
God.
forgot to mention, and one of my favorite things about this is that at the very, very end of the show, you see Albano dancing, and at the end of it, he does a short hop and clearly doesn't stick the landing. But they decide to leave that take in. Have you noticed that?
No, I did
Yeah,
not.
where he goes not like that, and he like
Yes,
leans forward
exactly.
with his legs out, and then he kind of pivots and he kind of tilts forward a little bit, like he's about to fall on his face, and he holds it.
Exactly.
Is
Yeah.
that what that was? I thought he was
Yeah.
like leaning in towards the camera.
No, he jumps and then he lands and then he comes off balance, so he's about to fall forward. But being the professional he is, he ends up shifting his weight and preventing himself from eating shit on the pavement.
That's one of my favorite parts.
So, my thoughts on this show: it's fun, it's very cheesy, and as Chris said, I don't know if today's children would be interested in it. But the thing is, too, is like I don't think today's children would really be entertained by the Marx Brothers in the way that I am. So it's really a product of its time, and I think that for the budget that they probably had and the time span that they had, this was really well done, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very campy and absurd, and it's a lot of slapstick and a lot of like stereotyping and just a lot of just insanity and drug fueled entertainment. And I think that anyone could have a good time watching like a 10-minute clip of this, if only to just make fun of it. And that aside, I would like to point out that even though Mr. Albano has passed, I think that Nintendo's really screwed up with the new film. Like we had a
we have to
represent-
mention that.
Like we had
God.
we had no. I would like no.
nobody would bring
Hold
it up.
on.
Oh,
Hold on.
God.
Hold on. We had a guy here that showed us what Mario should sound like.
Yes.
And we have Mr. What's his name? Marinette?
Martinet.
Martinet, the actual voice actor for Mario in the games, who's given us Mario. And because Hollywood, for some reason, has been killing the career of the voice actor for the last 10 years, we have Chris Pratt. And it's a reoccurring problem. And it's the same thing that came up with like God of War and with Solid Snake, and then replacing these iconic voice actors with Hollywood people just because they think that the name is going to make a difference. I don't care if Chris Pratt is Mario. He sucks. It's not a good Mario. And you should have given me someone that sounds like everyone's interpretation of Mario.
I'm going to bring this up, not in our next episode, but our one following that. When you talk about the death of the voice actor, it's been way, way longer than 10 years. And it started with Aladdin.
I mean, like, but we had good voice actors for a long time, at least. Like even into the PS2 era, like we had really good voice actors, and like we had David Hayter as the voice of Solid Snake, and then we ended up getting what's his face like later on.
Exactly, what's his face? To me, it's always going to be David Hayter.
Yeah, and it's just like we had David Hayter, and then we had the guy from 24, right?
A bad replacement, yeah.
Yeah, and then like we had was it Christopher Judge that was God of War? He's the new one, right?
Ooh,
the guy from Stargate's the new Kratos. And
I watched the Video Game Awards and I saw him and I can see his face, but I don't know his name.
Yeah, like we had the guy from Stargate as the new God of War, and he replaced like Terrence Carson. And it's just like, you can't do that. Like, that's not acceptable. And quit killing voice actors. Like, these people do a great job. And like, if you tried to give me someone other than Michael Bell for like the role of Raziel in the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver series, I'd slap you in the face. Like, you can't replace Tony Jay. You can't replace Michael Bell. You can't replace Simon Templeman. Like, quit killing voice actors, you terrible, terrible Hollywood suits. Anyway, that's my way off topic tangent. But you guys destroyed Mario.
Well, that went places I did not expect it to go. With all that out of the way, our next game is going to be a first for the show. It's our first sports title that we're going to talk about, and that's NBA Jam for the arcade and various consoles.
And slam, and welcome to Japan.
So I've got one last thing before we go. I will be giving away a code for Shovel Knight Treasure Trove for the Nintendo Switch. That's the full game. That's Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope, the Plague, Spectre, and King Knight campaigns. It's a $40 game on the eShop. I'm going to do this as a drawing. Okay, so how do you enter? If you're listening to this through iHeartRadio or some other podcast platform, go to my Twitter at @ReviewByte. That's review, BYTE, all one word, and like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show tweet that's going to come out and follow me. If you're listening to this through YouTube, like the episode and leave a comment. If you do both of those things, you'll get 2 entries.
Or also, if you're listening somewhere else, just get on Discord and make wild demands of Sean and he might respond.
That, you know what? That's an extra way. If you want to join our Discord and just bring up this episode, do that. And that'll be another way that you can enter. Also, the first 5 people that submit their information, and don't do it publicly, I'm going to DM you, okay, so that I can get your address. The first 5 that submit, will get a magnet of our show's logo that I'll mail out to anywhere in the U.S. Sorry if you're outside of the United States. I know we get a lot of listeners from Canada and some other places in Europe.
You know, one of the 5, I will chip in the shipping to send it to Canada if you're one of the 5.
Okay, there we go. Likewise, that code for Shovel Knight is for the North American eShop. So if you have a North American account, which you can create one, you can get this game.
And you guys, those magnets are super dope. Sean sent some to Chris and I, and they're actually really strong and they're pretty cool looking. So you should get one.
I think I'm supposed to give them away, but I'm keeping them all.
I gave one to Meg as a thank you for doing the.
Okay, you did.
Oh,
Thank
awesome.
you, because I was going to do that for
Yeah,
her.
yeah. I sent her one in her Christmas card, so we're good for that.
Oh, dude, that's
All
awesome.
right, perfect. I've got some. So at least for this episode, the first 5 are going to get a magnet, and I have 10 more in addition to that. And likewise, if this is something that people like and enjoy, I'll do it again. I really like doing this. This show is all about having fun and bringing people together to talk about our memories of these video games and now cartoons of video games and even the film, the Super Mario Brothers film, and just sharing that nostalgia. Chris and Cory, thank you guys so much for doing this show with me. We're closing out yet another year, and I hope that we do one this time again next year.
Oh,
well,
for
you
sure.
know, thank you for having me, and thank you to Lou Albano, and thank you to Bob Hoskins, and thanks
Danny
for letting me go
Wells.
on. Thanks to Danny Wells, and I guess John Leguizamo, and thanks for letting me go on a tangent about voice actors because it is one of my favorite professions, and I think that they are very underappreciated.
Before we log off or stop the tape, I just want to thank everybody, and especially Sean, for an awesome 2022 and all these great games that we've been playing. Because I didn't even think about the fact that, yeah, this is the last episode of the year. So thanks for an awesome 2022 and all the great games. And I will never finish Shining Force 2. And
He already forgot what he was doing, guys, so that is officially dead.
thanks for telling everybody that.
At least we beat it. At least 2 of us.
2 out of 3. Guys, stay tuned for when we do Chrono Trigger and Chris forgets what he was doing in that game, which
Oh my
is way
God.
harder to remember.
It is so hard to pick that game up again. But that's
Oh,
far
is
in
it
the
really?
future. Oh, it's rough.
Oh
man.
yeah, because there's like 9 timelines. There's like 4 endings to that game.
You can easily screw yourself up in Chrono Trigger.
Oh, man.
But
yeah,
that's
that'll
in
be
the future.
Quarter
That's
2 or quarter 3 of 2023, maybe.
Yep. So everybody out there, thank you so much. I hope you had a great year, and I hope that you spend this holiday season safe and surrounded by your loved ones. We'll be back next year. Thank you.
Do the Mario, swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario, take one step, and then again, let's do the Mario all together now. You got it. It's the Mario. Do the Mario, swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario, take one step, and then again, let's do the Mario all together now. Come on now.